There's a hierarchy in every room you walk into, whether you notice it or not. The powerful aren't observing everyone equally. They're scanning for the few who stand out, while the rest fade into the background before they even open their mouths. Most people don't disappear because they're quiet or humble. They vanish because they carry habits that silently scream one thing: irrelevance. Machiavelli never wrote for the masses. He wrote for the few, the rulers, the strategists, the ones who understood that power doesn't reward noise, it rewards presence. Visibility isn't about being loud. It's about being felt. And when you carry these 13 habits, you don't just get ignored. You become invisible. Invisible to power. Invisible to opportunity. Invisible to respect. It starts with the first habit. You enter rooms with your energy pointed inward. When a powerful person enters a room, their awareness expands. They scan, assess, and dominate without needing to say a word. But when a weak man walks in, everything collapses inward. His posture caves, his gaze drops, and his energy folds into itself. He's not in the room, he's hiding from it. To powerful people, this man doesn't exist. He's not even worth evaluating. Because if you don't value your own presence, why should anyone else? Machiavelli understood that appearances are the armor of influence. Disappear, and your enemies don't even have to destroy you. You've already done it yourself. Walking into a room is your first test. Your shoulders lead, your eyes scan deliberately, your energy projects outward. Don't wait to be noticed. Move like you expect to be. The second habit, speaking with apology in your tone. You might have strong words, but your tone gives you away. That rising intonation at the end of a sentence, that nervous laugh, that soft sorry, tucked between thoughts. It betrays you. You think you're being polite, but to powerful people, it sounds like you're asking for permission to exist. When your tone says, "I'm not sure I should be saying this," the powerful stop listening. Machiavelli believed speech was a weapon, measured, deliberate, calm, not desperate, not rushed, not seeking approval. Train your tone to be flat, steady, and final. Speak slowly. Use fewer words. Let silence carry your confidence. Don't fill the air with ums, likes, or, you know. The less unsure you sound, the more others will lean in to listen. The third habit, laughing too easily. Laughter is a social signal. It tells others, "I agree, I'm harmless, I want to belong." But here's what Machiavelli would have told you. The one who laughs first gives power away. Especially when it's not even funny, when it's nervous, or when it's at your own expense. Powerful people test others subtly. They'll say something borderline rude, sarcastic, or ambiguous. Not to offend you, but to see if you'll laugh to stay in their favor. And when you do, they know exactly what you are. Someone who'll trade dignity for belonging. So don't laugh just to keep things smooth. If something is disrespectful, don't smirk. Go silent. Let the air grow heavy. Make them feel your stillness. Because when people can't read you, they can't control you. And that is power. The fourth habit, over-explaining simple things. Someone asks you a question and you answer, but you keep talking. You explain your reasoning, your backstory, your intent, your disclaimers. Not because it's needed, but because you're trying to justify your right to speak. That's the scent of insecurity. The powerful don't have time for long-winded self-justification. You think, if I explain it clearly enough, they'll understand me. But what they're thinking is, if he needs this many words, he's not worth listening to. Machiavelli knew. The more you explain, the more control you surrender. Say your words, then stop. Let silence carry the rest. Speak as if your time is expensive. Let them ask if they want more. Never assume they do. When you speak less, your words carry weight. When you talk too much, your value dissolves into noise. These aren't small quirks. They're invisible disqualifiers. Subconscious signals that tell the powerful, this one isn't ready. This one doesn't believe in himself. This one can be ignored without consequence. And here's the harsh truth. You don't get a second chance with power. By the time you realize your mistake, the moment has already passed. The room has already moved on. Machiavelli understood that every environment is a battlefield, not with swords, but with posture, tone, presence, and silence. If you fail to weaponize those things, you'll be dismissed before your words even register. But we're just getting started. The fifth habit, waiting to be included. You sit in meetings quietly. You hover at the edge of conversations, waiting for someone to notice you, to invite you in. You tell yourself it's respectful, but what you're actually signaling is dependence. Machiavelli warned that relying on others for validation is fatal to presence. When you wait to be included, you're silently asking, am I allowed to belong here? Powerful people don't wait. They insert themselves, not arrogantly, but decisively. They don't ask, is it my turn? They take the turn. They add value fast, and then go quiet, letting their words echo. The hesitant are forgotten. The bold are remembered. The sixth habit, apologizing for your standards. You have limits, preferences, and non-negotiables, but the moment someone questions them, you soften, you explain, you backtrack, you treat your standards like they need defending. That's when you lose gravity, because when you defend your standards, you imply they're negotiable. Machiavelli knew that standards aren't moral. They're strategic. If you apologize for them, they seem arbitrary. If you stand by them silently, they become law. Say no without flinching. Decline without explaining. Walk away without showing pain. When your standards are delivered without justification, they become sacred. And sacred things command respect, not permission. The seventh habit, overusing praise. You think constant compliments make you likable. You tell people that's amazing or you're so talented to smooth interactions. But Machiavelli would laugh because praise, when used carelessly, loses its currency. Too much flattery reveals a hunger to belong, and to powerful people, that hunger is weakness. Praise rarely. Praise precisely. Praise after it costs something. Make it deliberate, delayed, and specific. When admiration is disciplined, it becomes signal, not noise. And the powerful don't listen to noise. The eighth habit, mirroring too much. You match their tone, their slang, their gestures, thinking it builds connection. But the more you mirror, the more you disappear. Because when your identity bends to fit theirs, your edges blur. The powerful sense it immediately. Mirroring too much says, I'll become whatever you need, just don't exclude me. That's not rapport, it's self-erasure. Keep your natural tone, even if it clashes. Don't mimic their rhythm or posture just to make things smooth. Let there be tension. The solid don't fear tension, they create it. People who can hold their shape in difference are the ones who get remembered. The ninth habit, showing gratitude too early. Gratitude is powerful, yes, but timing defines its effect. Saying, thank you for your time at the start of an interaction might seem polite, but it silently tells the other person, this meeting benefits me more than you. That imbalance instantly makes you smaller. Machiavelli's rule, delay gratitude. Establish presence first. Speak as an equal before you praise. Let the value exchange reveal itself before you say thanks. If you start a conversation by lowering your head, you'll spend the rest of it trying to lift it back up. Politeness isn't presence. Presence doesn't crawl. It walks in upright. And that's the real reason power doesn't notice some people, not because they lack potential, but because they whisper weakness in ways they don't even hear. These habits don't shout weakness, they whisper it. And those whispers are deafening to people who hold power. They don't need to analyze you, question you, or challenge you. They can feel what you are the moment you walk in. When those signals tell them, this one bends, this one apologizes, this one seeks permission, you vanish from their radar. They don't hate you. They don't look down on you. They simply don't see you, and that's far worse. Because when power forgets you, so does opportunity, so does respect. But here's the truth. You weren't rejected. You were invisible, and invisibility is something you've trained yourself to become. Every time you swallow your opinion to avoid conflict, every time you nod just to keep peace, every time you hide your edge to seem likable, you carve yourself into someone forgettable. Machiavelli understood this dynamic centuries ago. He knew the powerful aren't cruel, they're selective. They don't have time for everyone, so they scan for strength. They look for certainty, for signal. And when they sense compliance, apology, or hesitation, they move on. Because time is limited, and power only moves toward other power. That brings us to the 10th habit. Constantly seeking emotional safety in conversation. You know this one. You enter a room and instantly look for friendly faces. You monitor tone. You measure reactions. You study micro-expressions, softening your words the second you sense tension. You want peace, not friction. But here's the Machiavellian truth. He who fears conflict will always serve the one who doesn't. Real power doesn't crave comfort. It creates tension. The strong walk into rooms and drop truth like a stone in still water. They say what they believe, even when it makes people flinch. They allow discomfort to hang in the air like incense. Meanwhile, the weak scramble to clean up the atmosphere, to keep things smooth, pleasant, nice. But niceness is the leash of the powerless. Machiavelli would tell you, when you depend on emotional smoothness, you forfeit dominance. You become a social janitor, cleaning up other people's unease at the cost of your own presence. So let people feel uncomfortable around you. Let your words land hard. Let silence stretch long. Let the moment burn if it must. Because when you show no fear of emotional chaos, people start to respect you. Not because they like you, but because they can't move you. And that's the beginning of real influence. The 11th habit is one you might never think about. Avoiding physical space. You sit with your legs crossed tightly, your arms folded, your shoulders turned inward. You take up as little room as possible, as if apologizing for existing. That's not humility. That's submission. Machiavelli believed every room is an arena, and before you speak a single word, your body declares your status. The powerful don't just occupy space, they own it. They lean back, they plant their feet, they rest their hands calmly on tables like kings resting swords. Meanwhile, the invisible shrink themselves into corners, hoping their ideas will compensate for their absence. But they never do. Because if your body doesn't claim the environment, your words will never matter. Sit like you belong there, shoulders squared, chin level. No fidgeting, no nervous laughter when eyes turn your way. Let attention land on you naturally, and stay still when it does. Because here's the secret. The body trains the mind. If your posture commands space, your thoughts start to align with that same power. You stop being in the room. You start anchoring it. Now for the 12th habit. Over-identifying with good intentions. This one's brutal. Most people cling to their good heart like it's a shield. They think, I didn't mean to sound weak. I meant well. But here's the hard truth. Power doesn't care what you meant. It only responds to what you signal. Your intentions are invisible. Your signals are not. Machiavelli would have smirked at the idea of being rewarded for kindness alone. Because goodness without perception is useless. You can be pure in heart and still invisible in the hierarchy. When you over-identify with your good intentions, you build a blind spot. You assume people see your depth, your honesty, your sincerity. But they don't. They respond to what you project. If your tone is apologetic, they won't decode it as humility. They'll see it as weakness. If your presence is uncertain, they won't interpret it as respect. They'll see it as lack of confidence. Stop thinking people will give you credit for meaning well. Start taking responsibility for how you come across. Machiavelli's lesson here is simple. Don't expect rewards for inner virtue. Project outer certainty. Adjust your behavior, not your excuses. Because those who rise aren't necessarily the kindest. They're the ones whose presence commands perception. And finally, the 13th habit. Treating influence like something to earn. This is the deepest flaw of all. You believe that power is earned over time, that you have to prove yourself, wait your turn, gather approval, serve loyally, and then you'll be seen as worthy. But Machiavelli's principle cuts sharper than that. Influence is never earned. It's assumed. And when it's assumed with enough conviction, it becomes real. Those who carry true power walk into new spaces as if their presence already matters. Not loud, not arrogant, just anchored. They don't ask for attention. They don't seek validation. They don't need to be introduced. They move with the silent certainty that the room will adjust to them, not the other way around. Stop believing that your work speaks for itself. It doesn't. Stop waiting for someone to give you permission to act like you belong. You already do. When you move like someone who knows the spotlight is inevitable, people start paying attention, not because you demanded it, but because you left no other choice. That's when visibility begins. Not because you chased it, but because you became undeniable. These 13 habits, every nervous laugh, every over-explained answer, every hesitant smile, they've been quietly erasing you from the minds of people who could have opened doors for you, not because they meant to ignore you, but because your own signals told them to. And the tragedy is, you probably carried these habits for years, not because you're weak, but because no one told you that they were silent forms of self-erasure. But now you know. You can't unsee it. You can't unknow what your posture, tone, or reactions are really saying. You thought you were being polite, but you were disappearing. You thought you were being kind, but you were erasing yourself. The world doesn't care if you blend in. It only reacts when you stand out. You weren't born invisible. You trained yourself to become that way. From a young age, the world taught you, be nice, don't interrupt, don't make others uncomfortable. You followed the rules, and in doing so, you learned how to disappear. Machiavelli would have called this the tragedy of the self-erased. Because while everyone around you was told to play small to keep peace, the powerful were learning something very different. They were learning that peace is optional, but presence is not. The powerful aren't blind. They simply filter. They don't see everyone. They see signals. They look for certainty, composure, and conviction. The rest fades into the blur of noise. When you walk into a room dripping with apology, you send the scent of uncertainty. When your tone wavers, when your shoulders cave, when your presence folds inward, they don't consciously decide to ignore you. They just do. Their attention slides right past you. It's not cruelty. It's selection. Because in their world, time is limited, and power only moves toward what feels solid. Every environment is a silent test, and most people fail it not by being unqualified, but by being forgettable. But here's the good news. Invisibility can be unlearned. When you start subtracting these habits, the apologies, the over-explaining, the nervous laughter, something changes. The air around you thickens. Your presence starts to register. People pause before interrupting you. They adjust their tone when they speak to you. They glance twice before deciding what to say. Not because you demanded respect, but because you stopped leaking insecurity. You didn't add more words, you subtracted weakness. And what's left is presence. Because presence is not performance, it's gravity. You don't become visible by shouting. You become visible by standing still, by becoming the one thing in the room that doesn't move when everyone else does. Most people beg to be noticed. They perform, they flatter, they overexpress. But Machiavelli understood the deeper truth. Visibility is not granted to those who ask for it. It's claimed by those who embody it. You don't ask to be seen, you make it impossible to be ignored. And that begins with subtraction. The less you apologize, the more they respect you. The less you explain, the more they lean in. The less you try to belong, the more they wonder who you are. That curiosity, that moment of uncertainty, is your first spark of power. But the final 4 habits? They go deeper. They're not about how you act. They're about who you believe yourself to be. These aren't surface-level adjustments. They're core rewrites. Because visibility isn't just about tone or posture, it's about identity. Let's return to the 10th habit, the one that roots all others, seeking emotional safety. You crave smoothness, calm energy, no tension, no awkward pauses. You edit yourself mid-sentence to keep things light. You fear being misunderstood, so you pad your words with softness. But Machiavelli would have laughed at this instinct. He understood that tension is the currency of power. Those who fear tension are owned by those who create it. Powerful people walk into a room and shift the emotional climate. They speak with boldness, not arrogance, but with a steadiness that unsettles the unsteady. They make people question themselves. They don't fear the silence after a hard truth. They control it. You, on the other hand, were taught to make everyone comfortable, to avoid friction, to never let a room feel uneasy. But the moment you do that, you give your power away, because you've made emotional safety your master. Here's what happens when you drop that addiction. You stop reacting to every tone. You stop filling every silence. You stop shrinking when someone's expression shifts. Instead, you let it hang. You let discomfort sit in the air like smoke. Because only the grounded can stand still when the air gets heavy. That's when people start treating you differently. They start watching their words around you. They sense that they can't predict your reaction, and that unpredictability makes them respect you. You've stopped being safe. You've become dangerous. Now, remember the 11th habit, avoiding space. Most people's posture reveals their place in the social food chain. The ones who shrink are signaling submission before the first word is even spoken. You've seen it before. The man in the corner, perfect ideas, perfect timing, but no weight. Because his body says, "Don't mind me," and the room listens. Machiavelli's advice was simple. If your body doesn't command the room, your words never will. So unfold, breathe. Let your shoulders pull back naturally. Keep your chin level. Don't tuck your hands. Don't fold your arms. Own the space your body occupies. Presence starts with posture. It's not arrogance. It's alignment. Your body says, "I belong here." Your tone says, "I don't need permission." And your energy says, Notice me at your own risk. You're no longer just in the room, you've anchored it. Then comes the 12th habit, over-identifying with good intentions. This is where most people lose themselves. They believe, as long as I mean well, others will see it. But the world doesn't read intentions, it reads impact. Powerful people don't care what you meant to say. They care about what you signaled. You might think your kindness speaks for itself, but Machiavelli would tell you this: goodness that isn't perceived as strength is wasted. Intentions are invisible. Signals are undeniable. So stop assuming your heart is enough. If you act insecure but mean well, people will still treat you as insecure. If you talk too much to be clear, they'll see you as uncertain, no matter how kind you are. The powerful don't decode your soul. They decode your presentation. Machiavelli's realism may sound cold, but it's freedom in disguise. Because once you understand that perception drives reality, you stop waiting to be understood. You start commanding interpretation. You adjust not your motives, but your delivery. You refine not your soul, but your signal. Because in the end, the world rewards not the ones with the best heart, but the ones whose presence demands notice. And the last, deepest habit, the 13th, is the one that defines whether you'll ever be taken seriously. It's the belief that influence must be earned. Most people spend years proving themselves, waiting for validation, hoping that eventually someone important will notice. But Machiavelli's world doesn't work that way. Influence isn't a medal you earn. It's a state you assume. Those who carry true power don't wait to be crowned. They walk like kings long before the crown arrives. They don't ask, will they accept me? They move as if acceptance is already done. They don't ask for the spotlight. They simply step where it will eventually shine. Stop waiting for permission to act like you matter. Stop waiting for results to move like a leader. Stop waiting for others to notice your value before you own it. Because the moment you start assuming your influence, the world starts adjusting to you. And that's not arrogance, that's alignment with truth. Influence doesn't begin the day you're crowned. It begins the moment you stop asking to be seen. Because power isn't earned, it's declared. Those who truly understand this move differently. They don't rush. They don't over-explain. They don't seek approval. They carry themselves with an inner certainty that says, I'm already someone. When they walk into a room, people can feel it. Not because they're loud or flashy, but because they move with the silent gravity of those who believe their own worth. They don't demand attention. They attract it. They don't compete for space. They define it. They don't ask for validation. They project inevitability. This is the invisible psychology of power, the one Machiavelli wrote for. He knew that the moment you stop performing for recognition, you start radiating the one quality the powerful can't ignore: presence. Presence isn't charm. It's not charisma. It's not being friendly or confident. Presence is weight. It's the invisible pressure your being exerts on a room, and it comes not from addition, but from subtraction. You don't become visible by adding volume or effort. You become visible by removing everything that makes you ignorable. Because invisibility isn't just a condition, it's a set of micro-habits that dissolve your power, one polite gesture at a time. Every nervous laugh, every apology for existing, every sorry before a sentence, every extra word meant to cushion your opinion. These are tiny leaks in your presence, and the more you leak, the less the world feels you. But when you patch those leaks, when you stop apologizing, stop explaining, stop performing for acceptance, something shifts. The world starts to tilt toward you. People pause when you speak. They remember your face longer. They measure their words more carefully in your presence. Not because you've demanded their respect, but because you've removed the cues that allowed them to overlook you. The mind of the powerful works like radar, constantly scanning for signal. And when you remove all the noise, you become the clearest signal in the room. That's the moment power starts orbiting you. You begin to see how energy flows in hierarchies, and it always flows towards certainty. Now, think back to those 13 habits. Each one was a micro-surrender, a moment where you said, "I don't trust my value, so I'll cushion it." You didn't lose presence because you lacked confidence. You lost it because you tried to earn safety instead of project certainty. And that's the trap almost everyone falls into. They think visibility is something you work for, when in truth, it's something you decide to claim. The people who rise aren't necessarily the most talented or the most deserving. They're simply the ones who stop diluting their signal. When you stop chasing comfort, stop seeking validation, and stop waiting for permission, you stop asking for power and start becoming it. That's when the world reacts. Machiavelli taught that visibility is a form of warfare. Not with aggression, but with stillness. Not with arrogance, but with conviction. You don't conquer a room by trying to please it. You conquer it by being the only one who doesn't flinch. The less you adjust to others, the more they adjust to you. Because humans instinctively respect what they can't predict and fear what they can't move. This is what Machiavelli meant when he said that presence is a weapon. Not a weapon you brandish, but one you radiate. It's the invisible force that commands respect before a word is spoken. So, when you enter a room, you walk not fast, not slow, but with the rhythm of someone who's not looking for anything. Your eyes don't dart, they claim. Your shoulders don't fold, they lead. Your tone doesn't rise, it lands. You speak when you decide to, not when invited. You end sentences with silence, not questions. You let others adjust to your pace, not the other way around. And when you speak less, your silence becomes magnetic. When you smile less, your presence becomes sharper. When you hold your ground, your respect multiplies without effort. This is what true visibility feels like. It's not loud. It's heavy. You're no longer chasing recognition. You're radiating inevitability. People can't explain it, but they feel it. Something in their instincts tells them to watch, to measure, to approach carefully. Because when power can't read you, it can't control you. That's the essence of cold power. It's not about domination. It's about calibration, moving so precisely, so quietly, that your presence bends the emotional climate of the room without a single outburst. You don't need to speak to be noticed. You just need to exist differently. But let's go deeper into why this works. Every social dynamic, whether it's a workplace, a relationship, or a meeting, runs on invisible hierarchies of attention. And attention always flows toward whoever carries the least need and the most certainty. The powerful subconsciously scan for 3 signals. 1. Who controls their own emotions. 2. Who moves with calm conviction. 3. Who doesn't seem to need approval. Everyone else blends into background noise. That's why when you speak too fast, laugh too easily, or fill silence out of anxiety, you collapse your own gravity. The goal isn't to impress, it's to anchor. When you anchor, people orbit. When you shrink, they forget. Presence is not about perfection. It's about composure. It's the art of not reacting faster than your instincts. Because the moment you rush to respond, you confirm that someone else set your pace. And whoever sets the pace holds the power. Machiavelli understood this centuries before psychology gave it language. He saw that power wasn't just in armies or crowns. It was in timing, in control of tempo. To move slowly when everyone else is rushing. To hold silence when everyone else fills it. To observe when everyone else performs. That's the foundation of dominance. You don't fight for control. You create it through stillness. And when the world feels your stillness, it starts reorganizing itself around you. Because power, at its core, isn't about superiority. It's about certainty. Certainty so strong that others begin to question their own. And that's what makes you visible, not your noise, not your performance, but your refusal to vanish into the chaos. You've now seen the full picture. 13 habits that silently erase your presence in front of those who could elevate, empower, or open doors for you. Each one small on its own. But together, they create the illusion that you don't matter, that you can be ignored without consequence. And the tragedy? You didn't mean to do it. You were trained to. You were taught to be polite, to be patient, to be agreeable. You were told that humility wins hearts, that good work speaks for itself, that kindness will eventually be noticed. But the world doesn't reward invisible virtue. It rewards visible gravity. Every time you said sorry, just to smooth things over. Every time you laughed at something that disrespected you. Every time you waited for permission to speak, to act, to exist. You built your own cage. Machiavelli would have called this a slow death of presence. Not humility, not grace, but self-erasure. Because while the world taught you to shrink, the powerful were learning the opposite. They were taught that space belongs to those who take it. That visibility isn't given, it's claimed. That presence isn't loud, it's certain. The difference between the invisible and the undeniable isn't talent or luck. It's calibration. The invisible person tries to fit the room. The undeniable person makes the room fit them. And that shift, from fitting to defining, changes everything. When you stop playing small, when you stop apologizing for having standards, when you start speaking with finality instead of asking for permission, something subtle but massive begins to happen. The social current reverses. People start reacting to you instead of you reacting to them. They start watching your face for cues before they speak. They adjust their tone, their rhythm, their posture, not because you demanded it, but because your stillness forces them to. You've stopped chasing approval. You've become the metric of it. That's the real secret of presence. It doesn't ask to be respected. It creates the conditions where disrespect feels unnatural. When your energy carries weight, people instinctively measure their behavior around it. They hesitate before interrupting. They lower their volume without knowing why. They treat your silence as something that must be earned. You've stopped performing niceness. You've started radiating inevitability. And that's when visibility transforms into power. Because true visibility isn't about everyone liking you. It's about everyone noticing you, even when they don't want to. It's about being the quiet center of gravity in a room full of noise, the one they can't quite read, but can't ignore either. That uncertainty, the feeling that they might underestimate you and regret it, is the essence of influence. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. To be seen by the powerful, you must make them feel risk in ignoring you. That if they dismiss you, they might be making a mistake. You don't achieve that by shouting or proving. You achieve it through stillness, precision, and composure. Power fears what it can't define. So stop trying to be understood by everyone. Start becoming undecodable. When someone mocks you, don't react, don't flinch, don't perform a smile. Just look at them, calm, detached, unreadable. Let silence press against their chest. In that silence, they'll feel your edge. Because power doesn't announce itself. It tests the room. And when it finds no weakness to exploit, it respects what it cannot move. That's what visibility to the powerful really means. Not applause, not praise, but awareness. The awareness that you are a factor to be considered. A variable that can't be ignored. When people sense that ignoring you might have consequences, they start remembering you. They start including you. They start seeking your approval instead of the other way around. And that shift, that reversal of gravity, is what Machiavelli called control by presence. You don't need to dominate anyone. You just need to stop offering yourself as small. From this point forward, every movement becomes a signal. Every silence becomes a strategy. When you walk into a room, you walk not with urgency, but with precision. Not scanning for acceptance, but assessing the terrain. You speak only when it matters, and when you do, your words are delivered with the calm weight of someone who expects to be heard. You never over-explain. You never rush to fill silence. You let silence do the talking, because silence, when owned, is louder than speech. You no longer laugh to ease discomfort. You no longer shrink when attention turns your way. You let people feel the tension of your stillness, and when they test you, through sarcasm, condescension, or subtle challenge, you don't defend, you don't mirror, you don't appease. You simply observe. That stillness terrifies them, because it tells them what words never could. You can't categorize me, you can't predict me, you can't control me. And in that moment, they start respecting you, not because they understand you, but because they don't. That's the paradox of power. The less they can read you, the more they must reckon with you. From this moment on, stop believing politeness is your currency. It's not. Your true currency is presence. Presence built not through performance, but through subtraction. You subtract apology. You subtract explanation. You subtract the need to be liked. You subtract the softness that hasn't been earned. And what remains, when all that noise is gone, is signal. Pure, undeniable signal. You stop performing confidence and start embodying it. You stop seeking validation and start radiating gravity. You stop chasing recognition and start commanding awareness. That's when even the most powerful in the room begin to shift their attention toward you, not because you begged for it, but because you've made indifference impossible. You've become the center of the room without trying, because true power isn't loud. It's inevitable. The powerful can't ignore what doesn't need them. So walk forward with that energy, the energy of someone who isn't searching for approval, but moving through life as though he already possesses it. Speak less, stand taller, think slower, move deliberately. Treat silence as a throne, not a void. Let tension be your armor. Let composure be your crown. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to bend the atmosphere. When you finally stop leaking energy through softness, through over-politeness, through fear of discomfort, what's left is something that can't be overlooked. Not arrogance, not ego, just undeniable presence. And in Machiavelli's world, that's the essence of power. Because in a world that rewards noise, the man who masters silence becomes the one everyone listens to. You don't have to announce that you're powerful. You just have to make people feel it. When your presence carries that kind of weight, even kings take notice. And from that moment on, you'll never walk into a room the same way again.